What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in this video we're talking about a brand new film I got to check out a little bit earlier, coming out from Saban Films, and this film is called Supercell. Written and directed by Herbert James Winterstern, who wrote this film alongside Anna Elizabeth James. This film stars people like Skeet, Ulrich, Diemer, and Heche, Alec Baldwin, Jordan Christine Simone, and many more. Before we get too far into this, I'd like to say a big thanks to you guys for clicking here on this video and checking out my thoughts on Supercell, a brand new film coming out later this week on March 17th of 2023. So depending on when you're watching this video, the film may or may not already be out, and maybe you saw the film and that's what drew you to this review. I want to also say a quick thanks to those beautiful people over at Saban Films for sending me over another early screener for a movie. Always a pleasure to check out any of their releases, whether I enjoy the film or not. And today we're talking about a film called Supercell that I'm going to go ahead and start this off by saying I'm rather torn on, and I almost wanted to say that this was a film I enjoyed, but I just unfortunately was just slightly nudged into the direction of a film that I didn't enjoy overall. There are some big things about this film that I didn't like, to be honest, but there are some elements about it that I really enjoyed. And so let's get into the base premise of this film without getting too far into spoilers. The movie opens and we're introduced to a man named Bill Brody, who we learn is a very respected professional storm chaser. And if you're a fan of Twister, there's definitely some big Twister vibes in this film. Unfortunately, this film does not meet the same level of excitement and awesomeness that Twister has. So after meeting Bill Brody, unfortunately, we see his demise as he got a little bit too close to a storm that he was chasing. And we jump 10 years into the future, where we're really going to be spending time with his son, Will Brody, who is now trying to find out things about his father. He's realizing that he has the same passions as his father, and over the course of the film ends up reconnecting with an old friend of his father's, a partner and a fellow storm chaser played by Skeet Ulrich of Scream fame. And through that connection with his dad's old friend, he starts to learn more about his dad, starts to learn more about the profession of storm chasing, and start to fall more in love with nature, the storm chasing, and the dream that his dad had. I also want to continue this on by saying that Anne Heche is in this film, who actually passed away in the fall of 2022 and did not see the release of this film. Unfortunately, she was in an accident. I didn't know this actually until I watched this film and was writing down my notes for it. I had no idea that Anne Heche had even passed away a few months ago. So I just want to go ahead and say rest in peace to her, and my heart goes out to her friends and family 110%. And so as far as her in this film, I thought she was great. She plays the widow to Bill Brody, who once also was a part of the storm chasing profession and left it behind because of the dangers of the profession, but also to raise her son Will. And now her and Will kind of have a tough relationship because she left that behind, and he almost blames his mother for the death of his father simply because she was really involved in kind of keeping him safe when she was involved in the profession. And since she left the profession and wasn't on these adventures with her husband anymore, Will the son kind of believes that the mom is responsible for the father's death for not being there with him the day that he died. And that's the base premise of this film. You have a son going on an adventure, trying to find out more about his father. He's trying to find more about this profession that he himself is falling in love with. He wants to try to continue his father's legacy and his father's work. And yeah, you know, if you're a fan of things like Twister, if you like a good, you know, nature film, something about just disaster and stuff like that, or storms, I think there's something to be enjoyed here. Unfortunately, though, this film fully did not connect with me. I think this where this movie really shined was in its heart. There's a nice heart at the center of this film, kind of a coming of age tale of a son trying to, you know, learn everything he can about his father and chase that dream, chase the legacy. And I think there was heart at the center of this film that really made this film shine and kept me engaged from beginning to end. However, beyond that element of the film and some solid performances, I found that the story and the pacing and the dialogue often was not really strong. This is the case where I found that a lot of the actors were doing doing a lot of the heavy lifting for this film, whereas the script and the screenplay for me, I think, was letting them down a little bit. Without a doubt, I think the strongest performances from this film come from Skeet Ulrich, again, who plays the father's old friend who used to go out on these storm chasing ventures with him. He was a partner with him in that journey and is now actually doing tours for storm chasing for the company that used to be Bill Brody's and is now gone from being a lab, a scientific, storm chasing company into just a touring company. And Skeet Ulrich has kind of found himself as more of an employee of a company that deals with storm chasing versus the person getting out there to learn all he can about the storms. And now the owner of this company is played by Alec Baldwin, who is just kind of out there to get money. He started in this venture as somebody to really love storms and love the idea of storm chasing and the craft, but ultimately became a greedy person who uses the name of this legacy individual in the storm chasing community to sell some tickets to a tour that gets people close to storms. And that's when Will, the son, ends up getting into the mix, starts learning more about his father, starts connecting with all of these people. And I think that those were the moments that I found myself the most connected with. It's the son meeting all these people who knew who his father was and learning about his father. But beyond that, I feel like the film never really had a through line at times. It never really felt like it had a place that our characters were trying to go or things our characters were trying to do. It just felt like things were happening throughout the course of the film. It never really felt like there was a narrative focus throughout the course of the film. There were elements about the film that I thought were really focused, but there's not a whole lot about it that really felt like it had a streamlined narrative to really latch onto. I mentioned that Skeet Ulrich was one of the strongest parts of the film for me, and beyond him, I would have to say that Heche also gives a great performance in this film as the mother of Will Brody and obviously the widow to Bill Brody. I thought that she had a lot of weight on her shoulders. She really does carry and hold the pain of this woman who's raising a son who kind of blames her for the death of her husband, and also the pain of having lost her husband and her best friend due to this profession, and her trying to hold her son back from following in his footsteps, while also admiring the passion that her son has for this profession, and kind of realizing that she can't do anything about this and can't stop him from chasing this dream. And so unfortunately, those were the only real things I latched onto, because majority of this film beyond that, though, for me was a bit of a mess when it came to the story. I found myself bored throughout consistently. I kept checking the runtime. A lot of times the dialogue was pretty weak, and probably one of the most notable things about this film for me is that the sound design for this film was atrocious. There were so many moments in this film where I had to consistently be playing with the volume because the sound effects and the musical score and anything other than the dialogue was substantially louder than the dialogue. And I'd put the volume up, and then we'd be in a storm scene and there'd be lightning and thunder and everything would be so loud, and I had to put the volume down, and sometimes I couldn't even hear the dialogue that was being said. And I'm really hoping that that was just the cut that I was sent and not the cut that's going to be available on March 17th across various platforms for purchase and rental and stuff like that. I really hope that people are not seeing the same cut that I saw in terms of the audio mix, because the audio mix that I watched this movie with last night was pretty weak. There was just such an imbalance in the way that this film sounded when it came to the dialogue and the sound effects and the music that it consistently took me out of the movie. Beyond that as well, the visual effects of this film I was not a fan of, whether it be the color grading, whether it be the green screen to show the storms in the background. There were so many times where I felt like I could see the outline of the characters on the green screen, and it took me out of the film throughout. There were moments where you can tell that they filmed certain shots in bright daylight and were trying to make it look like they were in the middle of the storm in the dark with clouds around them, and the color grading on the characters, adding all these blues and grays, often just made the film look muddled and kind of messy. And again, kind of similar to what I was just saying with the audio mix, I'm really hoping that this movie's visual effects are way better than the cut that I watched yesterday, and that the version that comes out to the public is not the same cut that I saw, because as far as the visual effects of this film and the audio mix, I thought that it was really, really bad. However, even though I didn't enjoy the audio mix of this film, Corey Wallace, who did the musical score for this film, I thought was fantastic. There's a very John Williams-esque sound to the musical score of this film. So while the musical score was, put to 10 and the audio of the dialogue was put to 2, I was really engaged in the music. And I think that that's part of what leaned into some of those elements of heart that I really enjoyed throughout the course of the film. There were nice touching moments with this young boy trying to learn everything he can can about his father and meeting people who meant a lot to his father, or that his father meant a lot to them, and learning about him. And there are so many moments of him going out to try to find storms, or being amidst the storm and seeing the beauty of nature and the insanity and the chaos of nature. And there were so many little moments like that that really shined because of Corey Wallace's score that felt very much like a John Williams score in a lot of ways. It reminded me of little moments that you'd hear in a Jurassic Park film or even a Star Wars film, minus the reprised motifs and themes. This isn't really a film that has very memorable motifs and themes that I could hum for you afterwards. There's nothing about it that really stands out in terms of a musical score that feels super different and has like very memorable themes that you can be like, I'm gonna hum that for the next few days. But in terms of atmosphere and feel and vibe and emotion and giving the film a sense of wonder and awe at times, I do feel like Corey Wallace's score here was really solid, again with very John Williams-esque vibes throughout the course of the film, minus the motif element of it. And so yeah guys, I feel like this review has been as messy as this movie kind of was for me. There were elements about this film I enjoyed. I think the performances for the most part were solid. I just couldn't get into the movie overall because of the pacing, the way that it was edited, the story overall, the dialogue. I think the actors were doing the best that they possibly could with the material here. I think there was some heart here. I think that Corey Wallace's score definitely helped add to the atmosphere and the emotion of the film, but the visual effects, the audio mix, and the overall story left me just feeling by the time I got to the end of it. There were so many cliches, there were so many just forced elements and things that just felt like the, hey, we gotta check that off a box to throw that in a movie kind of thing, a little cheesy romance that's thrown in here, different things like that that just made the film feel like any other film. There isn't a lot about this film that I could really recommend, and while I did enjoy elements that I've obviously praised here in the review, I just felt like the movie was a mess, and I feel like that kind of comes through with my bit of a messy review here. So a big thanks to you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys thought about Supercell if you checked it out, or if you're gonna check it out. Whatever the case may be, leave a comment down below, hit that like button, subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.